What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Couch Boxing. I am, of course, your host, Reckless Rex Ruger. That, of course, is my silent sidekick, the Alexis Arguello puppet. We are back with another banger of an episode. Of course, I'm a bit biased. In my opinion, they are all bangers. But listen, the proof is in the pudding. You guys go back, check out the past episodes. I'm going to spit out my gum as if I'm in class. It's not very professional in the podcast world. We're back with another episode. My guest is here. Y'all know what we do here. The most amazing and real boxing conversations anywhere on planet Earth. Legends, luminaries, world champs, and fighters on the rise. Coming here to chop it up with your boy, Reckless Rex. My guest is here, so we're going to get into it immediately. I'm excited about this one. Had this one circled on the calendar for a while. And there he is. My old, I guess at this point I can say my old broadcast pal.
That's right, exactly.
Even though we only did it one time, but that is the extent of my broadcast history right there, is only one time. So therefore, man, I am a veteran of exactly one event, but I hope more in the future.
Yeah, me too. You guys were great. You were wonderful.
It means a lot coming from you, man. And literally, and for those who have tuned in and immediately don't know what the hell we're talking about, my son and I, who used to host this podcast with me, it became hard for him because he's got 4 kids. He would literally do his end out in the car with kids knocking on the window, and so he was my co-host for the first 160 episodes. But yeah, thanks to Ernie Bizzarro, we got invited down to Erie, Pennsylvania. He's seen the podcast. We've had his nephew Anthony on several times. Great young fighter. And so that's kind of how like our friendship with them kind of linked up. We got invited down to do the commentating, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. And you were kind enough to sit in with us through the boxing portion of it. Listen, I was a little worried about the MMA portion because admittedly I don't know shit about that stuff either.
No, neither do I.
I mean, I can tell when someone's getting choked, but I might not know the proper vernacular of what the specific choke or hold is.
Listen, I haven't been in front of any kind of camera for boxing anyway in 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So when Ernie asked me to come up, I was like, I didn't even know what was going on. He just said, "Come here." Right. Sat me down. You guys threw a headset on. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But boy, I'll tell you, it felt good. Yeah,
it did feel good. And of course, that was right on the heels of, and again, condolences, you had just lost your legendary father, legendary to the boxing world, Don Elbaum, who at that time, we were down there for the event, August 2nd. So he had passed like a week before that, correct?
He passed, July 27th.
Yeah. And so, in my digging, and I try to be somewhat of a boxing historian, but I guess I'm finding out that I knew a lot less than I thought I did about the colorful career of your father. And I guess I will call it colorful.
Colorful works. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. First of all, man, I want to bring up a couple things that I found interesting that you can either maybe refute or confirm, because, obviously the internet sometimes surprisingly, shockingly does get things wrong.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. So at one point he actually staged at an Elks Club in Ohio trying to find the worst boxer ever.
Yeah.
Which ended in a draw.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
He also on I don't know on how many occasions, but on multiple occasions, actually, for lack of a better term, using a baseball term, acted as a pinch hitter when fighters didn't show up, and actually got in the ring.
He did it a couple of times. He did it 2, maybe 3. I only know of 2.
Okay.
But yeah, he jumped in on his own cards when opponent failed to show or make weight or whatever the heck it was, and he jumped in and fought. And one of the funny lines is he said to one of the guys, he goes, "Be careful, I'm the guy paying you."
Right. True or false? He did on more than one occasion pretend to be the doctor and do the physicals. I don't think impersonating a doctor is as bad as impersonating like law enforcement.
Probably not. Hey, listen.
And besides, it's a moot point now because he's dead. So
he's gone. Yeah. So yeah, he's done that, and I will tell you that some of these doctors, anyway, you know, a real boxing guy actually knows more in some of these situations.
Right.
You know, so and he knows his way around every aspect of a fight and a
Right.
fighter, and so yeah, he's done that. Yep,
Probably and you make a good point. Probably more qualified than some of the guys that are giving these fighters the once over.
yep, that's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Now here's the one that I found particularly like this is something out of like Casino or a mob movie. Someone blew up his car in 1972 or blew up his 1972 Pontiac.
Yeah. So you know the movie Kill the Irishman?
Oh yes, seen it many times. As a matter of fact, it's funny you say that. I just turned my son onto it the other day, and he absolutely loved it. Danny Green.
Danny Green was the one that put the 9 sticks of dynamite in my dad's car.
Now, what would be the reason behind that? Or what you're at liberty to say, because obviously, for people that don't know, there's a big mob war that went on in Ohio. Maybe people that were around that summer remember all the bombs going off, lots of car bombs.
Yep.
Danny Green, an Irish mobster, was taking on the Italian mob. He was kind of a lone wolf. Maybe had his own little crew or whatever. Mm-hmm. Did not back down from them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, here's there's a couple different things. My father defied the boys.
Yeah.
When they were trying to muscle in, and they've tried to muscle in on boxing. They were a huge presence in the 50s and probably the 40s. That's all before my time, thank God.
Yeah.
But the 60s, the 70s, they were still holding on and trying to muscle in. And my dad never let it happen. There's been a couple different things that I've heard, and none of it's for sure. Okay. And
right.
My father didn't know for sure. He did feel that Danny liked him. Okay. Danny had been to shows and so on. And it's possible that Danny bought a contract and just decided not to do him in just to scare him.
Yeah.
There's also thoughts that that's what it was supposed to be up front. So we don't know for certain when the bomb was put in the middle of the night. And, so we really feel that there was no intent to whack my dad. It was an intent to scare him. And I will tell you that, he was more pissed off about the car.
and so obviously we're covering a lot of your father's history, but explain a little bit to the audience who may be tuning in right now your history. Obviously, it is a boxing podcast. Your association with boxing.
I mean, I grew up in it as a child. By the time I was 8, I was selling programs at shows. And by the time I was 12, I was a ticket taker. And by the time I was 14, I was a ticket seller. And, I started helping him, because back in those days, especially with a lot of the arenas that he went into, we set up the chairs. We set up the tables. We did it all. I just grew up around it and started doing it, and being involved and being in the gym and knowing my way around. I started following a musical path, a business end of it. Also very young, and I learned from the best. I mean, a promotion is a promotion.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
And I had done a few things with him a little bit more importantly. And when we did the Duran Bizarro fight, Louis Bizarro in Erie, I was much more involved with that. King was also involved. I got to do odd and end things behind the scenes, which I'd always been behind the scenes because as long as I can remember, I mean, I've been in smoky back rooms that the average person out there wouldn't want to have been in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I moved out west, and when I came back east, he needed help. And I don't remember the fight, but it was early. The fight was summer of 1980, and he picked up the state of Ohio for pay-per-view. Back in those days, big fights were not pay-per-views, closed circuit. I'm sorry.
Closed circuit, yes.
Or closed circuit. So you'd go to see these fights in some type of venue, and he had the entire state. So he gave me, I took Youngstown and Steubenville, and he had we had Cleveland and Columbus, Cincinnati, etc. So I took two of the smaller cities, and that was it. I just basically have been by his side for 90% of everything he's done, uh, starting the summer of 1980. And the last show we did was in Flint, Michigan. Um, in 2017, it was to raise awareness and funds for the water situation in Flint. And I was with him for almost everything. I will say that when he went to the Blue Horizon, uh, there was when he was first there was a lot of confusion on how things should be run.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And Vinoka Michaels was running the place. So she was terrific. But I lived in New York City and I'm traveling back and forth, and there was a couple of shows that didn't happen at first, and this and that. And finally I said, I can't be part of this. This is a gig for my dad to
Right.
do these regular shows.
Right.
Although I went to visit all the time, but he's still, and he always has, always done other events outside of whatever that one gig was that he
Right.
had,
Right. Right.
And so I was. With everything else. I started at the Blue, showed up a lot at the Blue. When I'd show up, I'd just help because that's what they'd ask me to do.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of it. I mean, I've been involved with everybody from Pryor to Foreman to Simon Brown to tons of lesser knowns. Crazy fights like Kip Kane out of Columbus, Ohio versus what was supposed to be a washed up Leon Spinks
Yeah.
at the Felt Forum, and we had worked a deal to get Kip ranked in the world and a potential title fight, and we picked the one guy that we fought that had a name that Kip could beat, and Kip didn't beat him.
No.
Not me, different Kip. So
what was your father's opinion? Because I'm sure he crossed paths with him many times. I'm trying to think back to guys that have been in the business a long time. A polarizing figure, Don King. Did your father brush up against him? I'm sure he did.
well, my dad was basically the guy that started gig in boxing.
Okay.
King, there was a black hospital in Cleveland, Ohio, and King had befriended through somebody. Through a singer, I think it was. What the heck was his name? I may come up with it. At any rate, King had befriended Muhammad Ali, and they decided they wanted to do this show in Cleveland to save this black hospital. So King called my dad, and they did some fights together. I will tell you that I believe it was 1980, maybe 81, HBO had a movie called Only in America, The Life and Crimes of Don King.
Yep.
And I believe they actually changed the name. So it wasn't quite, the life and crimes part. I think they actually changed it. But my dad played himself in that movie. Ving Rhames played King. And when the movie came out, USA Today quote of the week was by my father. It said, "I introduced Don King to boxing, and I've been apologizing to the world ever since."
Yep. So obviously, was there a specific falling out, or did your father's opinion of Don King just change the more he watched the way he maneuvered through the boxing world?
No, King, King used and abused, and my father was old school to where he would do things on a handshake.
Yep.
And I tell you that screwed him plenty of times. And King had the money. My father didn't have the money, and King just started stealing fighters and just ignoring contracts. And King could do it, and he could run this stuff, run out the time, because he had enough money to fight my dad. And my dad didn't have the kind of money. My dad won a few lawsuits, lost a few lawsuits. Listen, King, King is an amazing showman and
Absolutely. Yep.
promoter.
Yep.
But, I'm sorry, King's not a good guy. And, he'll just take from you.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my father was one of the guys he took a lot from. But, it's a shame because it's just a shame,
Yeah.
you know? So,
It'd be nice to see a little more honesty and integrity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Your father sounds like one of those kind of guys who, for as colorful as he was, still kind of had those sound core principle values.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Listen, he believed in boxing. He believed in the fighter. Um, he was a great matchmaker because
Yeah.
he could create a bout to build up fighter A and create a bout with fighter B. Okay, and he did an amazing job of building fighters. But I will tell you, he time after time he went into both dressing rooms and he told not just his fighter or the guy he was promoting, but the other side what to do to win.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
never hesitated to tell the truth to either side. And he never wanted to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I've heard him say, look, this is going to be a tough fight for you. I don't think you're going to win it, but this is what you could do to
Yeah.
A, make a great showing, and or B, even possibly win. That was the kind of love of boxing that my dad had.
Is there anybody, of course, you made the point of being side by side through so many of these events and these dealings. Is there any that particularly he ever looked back on, like with a fondness, an event, a fight, a fighter that he worked with that he was extremely fond or proud of?
I mean, the Bizarro family, and especially John Bizarro Sr., who passed away a number of years ago,
Yep.
and his fights with Flash and Lordy, and oh God, I think I'm getting old. I can't remember that. John, there was a guy named Mike Brady in Erie, Pennsylvania. He was a
Okay.
trainer. He was also a foreman on the railroad. And my dad went to see Mike about whatever. Mike was the Erie trainer. And my dad kept looking over Mike's shoulder and seeing this young kid, shirt off, swinging a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
And my dad couldn't take his eyes off this kid. And he's like, who the hell is that? And it was John Bizarro Sr. John was 18 years old. And that was it. My dad said, get him in the gym. So there's a ton of love for the Bizarro family. But he treated guys like George Foreman and Aaron Pryor and Simon Brown, great fighters,
Yeah.
the exact same as guys like Sonny Long out of Cincinnati. You don't know who Sonny is, right?
Right.
Neither
No.
does anybody else.
Right.
Okay. Sonny had 10 wins and 40 losses, whatever the heck it was. Okay.
But he respected anybody that climbed through those ropes.
You got it.
Yeah.
So, he had a lot of love for all these people. Of course, Muhammad Ali, my dad used to babysit all these kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, he just had such a fondness for everyone, for the fighters and the cornermen and the cutmen.
Yeah.
Not all the other promoters, because
Right.
he was the last of a breed. I mean, King is about money, not
Right.
boxing.
Right.
King, became boxing, but it's still about the money. And I'll say, Bob Aaron, the same, maybe to a little bit of a lesser extent. The Duvas, we love the Duvas. The Duvas were about boxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But it's my father had the respect for the guys that eked out, that didn't even eke out a living, that just got in there. Some made it, but no, they all stand up because that's my father. If he was here right now, and look, he worked a show with you, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, you could talk to him about all kinds of fighters. Jack Rogers out of Uniontown, Pennsylvania in the 60s.
Just little known guys. Little known guys.
Tap Harris, Gil King, all these right along with the big names. Okay. And he could tell you things with that moved him about all these guys. So
Were there any heirs of the like in recent years? Obviously, there are a big demographic of people, especially post 2000, the 2010s and onward, where people start to think boxing's become a circus. We're seeing Jake Paul type events. We're seeing boxing losing some credibility. I think it is starting to fight its way back. What did your father think about boxing in these recent couple of decades before his death?
He was a showman. My dad loved the glitz and glamour of,
Yeah.
and he did create a couple of crazy events like that.
Yeah.
But, he wanted to make sure if there was a circus of an event, was one of the fights that circus was really going to bring the people in.
Yeah.
He always made sure that the undercard, and this is the sad part, most people don't see those fights.
Right.
He always made sure the rest of the event was a legit boxing show.
So the whole thing wasn't just a circus act.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And people don't see that. It's you only see the,
If you're gonna give us Chuck Wepner fighting a kangaroo, at least give us a strong undercard.
Exactly. I mean, that's basically it. He was a showman. I think, just recently I was talking to Eric Botcher, with all this with my dad.
Yep.
And I told Eric, I said, I miss doing fights. And Eric said, no, you don't. And I went, yeah, I do. He says, no. He goes, stick with your memories and do the rock and roll. He goes, you got a great reputation, in rock and roll.
Yeah.
He said, stick with that. It makes you happy. You won't be as happy if you do the fight. So I brought that up. I think my dad was, still quite lucid in the nursing home, and I brought that up to him, and he looked at me. He goes, "How do you put it?" He goes, "Sadly, I believe Eric's right."
Yeah.
And I think that this is, my dad still had ideas, but it's tough when you're in your 80s and 90s for money guys to put up money.
Right.
Okay, with somebody older. And it's a different world anyway. The money guys look at you now and go, no, we'll do MMA. We're not going to do, a club show or a regional show. And I think that was one of the problems that we had since that Flint show. Just couldn't come up with the money anymore. Couldn't come up with backers. And these same backers would talk to us, but then they would go back MMA.
Let me ask you your opinion, or if you ever tapped into his opinion on a couple of glaring issues with modern boxing. First of all, your father obviously comes from a time when at every weight there was one recognized champion. What did he think about all these belts in like the 4-belt era? Fan of that or not?
We were disgusted with this back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
By the mid 80s, I was full time doing boxing. I still did music, but my main, and I'm even, we'd sit in the office and go, what are these belts?
Yeah.
Now, initially, there was some hope that a couple of these lesser organizations or the bigger organizations, lesser known belts would bring, would help smaller promoters.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And, we always believed in the old school, boxing in every city.
Right.
I loved going into some of these towns. My dad thrived on it. Of course, we love going into Madison Square Garden. But, going into Youngstown, Ohio, and Erie, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
to do these events. And, we had discussed the idea that, some of these titles may bring some life back in, because now all of a sudden there'll be some type of regional hometown champion
Right.
that the fans can get behind.
Rally around. Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
started looking like that for a very short period, and we just no. It's sad. It's disgrace. Yeah, there's only one world champion in each weight division. End of story. And okay, I'll give it to you. There's a couple sanctioning bodies that still deserve it, but then they put all these other fancy names and still call this guy a world champion.
Right.
No, no,
Right.
no,
Right.
no. It's a disgrace, and it really is part of what's zapped the heart and soul out of boxing.
What did he think about? Because obviously, again, he's coming from an era where guys didn't get big dollars for fights. What about these big contracts and these fighters now at the top of the game fighting once, twice a year? That had to drive him crazy as an old school guy, making $30 million and only fighting one time a year.
Again, you're basically right. We do come back, from the days of I'll use an example. One of the greats, one of my all-time favorites, Emil Griffith. I mean, what do you have? 38 losses?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This and King was part of this, creating this mentality of an undefeated fighter, and that television loved that idea of an undefeated fighter.
Yeah.
And so that zero in the loss column brings dollars.
Sure. People think
And
seeing something. People think they're seeing something very special, very unique. Yeah.
And so what you got is there's so much money at stake now, which is great for those few that can tap into it. But you understand why you're protecting your fighter.
Right.
When there's 10 million, and that's pennies anymore. Like when there's 10 million available, if he doesn't lose, which also can relate to he doesn't fight anybody else first.
Right. Right.
Versus $100,000 payday. What are you gonna do?
Right.
It's a double-edged sword.
Getting a big payday and getting a belt used to really mean something. And now it seems like it can be done. It can also be done with less fights. Guys are getting belts with 10, 12, 15 fights on their belt. You used to really have to earn that shot. Sometimes have 20, 25, 30 fights in your belt before you got a title shot.
That's right.
You had to really earn it.
And more. Listen, again, I can understand both sides. I still am one of these ones that believes a fighter should fight. And you know what? I watch these guys, blow up. And I'm talking smaller guys, not just heavyweights, but guys blow up and put on 80 pounds. A guy that should be 147. And suddenly he's over because he's not in the gym. Well, I'm sorry. And I think this way on just about everything. A fighter should fight. And if he's not fighting in the public ring, he should be fighting in the gym.
Yeah.
Keeping sharp. I do the same thing with musicians. I'm like, don't be lazy. Rehearse.
Right.
I don't need to rehearse. Yes, you do. Keep your chops up. Keep your edge up. I watch these guys they make the big money. They don't go back to the gym until it's time to suddenly lose a bunch of weight. No, I mean, you love money more than you love boxing.
Did your father get a chance these last couple of years? Obviously, he must have. What did he think of the sudden emergence and entry into boxing of Saudi Arabia and Turkey al-Sheikh? Obviously, they're paying people well on their cards. They are really trying to put together cards that are really stacked from top to bottom. They're giving us great events. They're making the best fight the best. Did he ever levy an opinion on where he stood with them becoming, players in the sport?
Yeah. It's again, he understands it. Money talks.
Right.
And And he would say it's a different world. At least they're doing boxing.
Right. And I know when
You
I had
know,
people on early on when they got into it, I know there was a certain demographic of people that were a little protective, a little leery, like, okay, now these guys are coming in throwing, big oil money at fighters and kind of sitting back and like, what is this? Is this their form of entertainment? You know what I mean? Like cockfighting to them, you know what I mean? But they really do seem like they really are approaching the sport with with some seriousness and some professionalism.
yeah, no, I'll agree with that. I do think that there is. Listen, people do fall. People like come in. I watch people come in with money, and
Yeah.
that was their, and fall in love with the game.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know what I mean? And then they lose all their money in the end. But that's
Right.
different.
Well, and also this guy is getting made some fights that we didn't think happen. We would see happen, man. I mean, I don't think anybody else was going to get a Canelo Crawford made. They just weren't. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he's a guy that's getting things done. He's getting
yeah.
top dollar fights made. Now because we do see so many of these, since we're on the topic of that, I don't know. Maybe Floyd and Manny was the last fight that you could deem a super fight, but we are less than a week away from seeing one. Just opinion wise, to step away from it, subjectively, how do you see Canelo and Crawford shaking out?
Okay, I'm going to be honest on this one.
Yeah, please.
Since I got out of boxing, and since I do 90% of my, 95% of my life is music, the other
Yep.
5% is my kids. And since I'm not involved anymore, I don't really watch much.
You
I
don't.
don't have
Okay.
I don't have a TV.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
own television.
I don't watch a lot either. I have a TV, but I watch my phone. I watch a lot of stuff I'm interested in,
Yeah,
documentaries. I mean, like stuff that I just can't get just turning on the boob tube,
my days. Listen, somebody called me to give his condolences. And I won't say who or anything until I see what happens. And he said, would you still help me if I did a show down in the Carolinas? And I thought about it, and even going against what Botcher said and everything, I said, yeah, I'll do a show. You
Yeah.
know, so let's see what happens in an event like that. That actually to do, I've got that love of
Right.
small town middle America.
Right.
Um, that could change a little. That could change my outlook a little bit. But since I knew I wasn't really going to be involved, and my life was going to go full blast music, that's what I've done. So I've been invited somewhere, been invited to a friend's house to watch the fight. And I want to. And there's also a really, really great string band playing. Okay.
Uh-oh. I'm
Outdoor.
torn.
And
Yeah.
and so, for me, I'm going back and forth. I want to watch the fight. I haven't really seen a fight in a while.
Right. Right.
So,
And we don't
but
and like I said, we don't get a lot of fights that get the label, super fight. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
this is one of those ones where that's really captivated people. But not just boxing fans, but it's kind of sucked everybody. And I think everyone's kind of been waiting to see if this one would be made. It's very intriguing.
mhm,
I've just asked everybody who's come on here just because it is so topical. You know what I mean?
mhm.
But so to depart from the boxing for a little bit, because on this channel I do two separate podcasts. My other one, oddly enough, is a rock and roll podcast.
Yeah,
So
yep.
I'm
He told
interested
me
in
that.
finding I'm interested in finding out that part of your life, man. Like to what level you're involved in rock and roll. How'd you get into that?
Oh, I put together my first band when I was in ninth grade. I was the singer, and started. I took a couple months. We were doing like junior high school shows and the YMCA shows and stuff like that. And I was actually in Erie, Pennsylvania at the time. And one thing led to another, and I realized I was a better businessman. And look at who I learned from
Yeah.
than I was a singer.
Yeah.
In 1973, I was 15. I was stage managing a big all day festival type show with, oh my God, Foghat, Spirit, Canned Heat,
Yeah.
Blues Image. I mean, it's really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And, I had long hair, I had a full beard, and pretty much nobody realized, the average Joe didn't realize that I was 15 years old.
Right. Right.
I was already booking bands and bars and hanging out for shows. Nobody ever bothered me. I conducted myself properly. And so I'm stage managing a show. Um, and the guys in Spirit, their tour manager had to take off for some reason. And they had 2.5 weeks left of the tour, 3 weeks left of the tour. And and I think Ed Cassidy, the drummer, I think it was Ed that said, "Well, yeah, what do you got going?" And I said, "Nothing really." He goes, "Would you come out with us and finish the tour with us?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Sure." He said, "All right, can you meet us here at the Holiday Inn at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning?" Absolutely. So we finished, this show is done that we did. Um, I get home late at night, my mom's, "Oh, honey, I'm glad you're home," because she knew what I was doing, that I was out working. And I said, "Ma, I got to talk to you." I said, "I got to pack a bag. I'm leaving in a couple hours to go." And she's like, "I'm not going to be able to stop you, am I?" I said, "Nah, Ma."
No.
I said, "But guess what? I'll be back in time for 10th grade to start."
Yeah.
And if my life's been on a downhill spiral ever since.
Was it hard for you? You talked about realizing you're a better businessman than a singer. Obviously, a lot of young people, man, they get that rock and roll itch. They want the fame, they want the accolades, they want to be out on the stage, man, and soaking all that in. Was that a hard transition? Was that a hard thing to say? You know what? I'm better behind the scenes than I am out on the front of the stage.
Yeah, of course there's ego involved.
Yeah.
It's, you know, for better or worse, I'm a lot like my dad.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I do now on a much smaller scale, but I'll walk into places like Webster Hall in New York, to 1,300 people, and I'll get introduced on the stage, and the place starts cheering, and people start chanting my name.
Yeah.
It's a so you know what I've I host shows, I MC, I do, I get called to do radio and podcasts, and
Right.
I'll jump up, I jump up on stage and help band members I know when the stage manager isn't getting there, and when I'm just hanging out, you
So
know?
you found a way to get your personality out there and be
Exactly.
recognized. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know what? I don't, I got a lot of followers. I get a lot of, I get a lot of accolades, and I walk into a room and the photographers take pictures. So I still get that ego stroke, and I don't have to subject people to my voice. Well, my singing voice.
And obviously, when I was doing my digging, putting my notes together, though, music is kind of in the family. But would it be easy to say that maybe it skipped a generation? Because if I'm not mistaken, your father's mother was a concert pianist, correct?
Yes, and my father started out um, as a classical pianist at 5 years old. By
Okay.
the time he was 6 or 7, he and my grandmother were doing duets. With the, I believe it was when he was still in Cincinnati with the big orchestra there,
Yeah.
and yeah, there it was hope on from his parents that he was going to be a classical pianist, but he got sick. He got rheumatic fever, scarlet fever, rheumatic fever,
Yep.
and it took a toll on him. And Uncle Danny, his mother's brother, deceased, years ago, uh, took him to see a fight, trying to cheer him up. And my dad fell in love. And and the doctors told my dad, well, you're never going to be able to do anything like that. And he did. He did. And
Was there a point in time when your own parents, because it sounds like when you were running off to be the tour manager with the band, that your mother was reluctant because your father had the musical background, though? Like, were they at all worried about your foray into the music world. Obviously, getting in the arts is a speculative career. Some parents are a little leery. Oh, geez, that's not really a sound career choice. You know what I mean? Running off, being part of the rock and roll world.
Yeah, there was definitely concern. Listen, let's look at the time now. We're talking
Right.
the early 70s.
Yeah.
I could roll a joint with one hand
Yeah.
and move a guitar amp with the other. I
Yeah.
was 15 years old. You know, they were disturbed by some of that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I jumped in it hook, line, and sinker from every level. So, yeah, I mean, I was young, involved with the sex, drugs, and rock and roll,
Right.
and yeah, that did not make them happy.
Right.
Okay, but little by little, you start proving yourself, and the time finally came when my dad started growing his hair a little bit longer instead of, you know, cut that hair off, which,
Right.
I had that. And,
Right.
but they started recognizing it. And it
Right.
wasn't long that they both recognized that, I was not some crazed, evil drug nut, that I took this seriously. And then I took the boxing stuff seriously. And I took the business seriously.
Right.
So,
Obviously, there must have been a little part of your father, though, because as I mentioned earlier, he did step in on a couple occasions when fighters didn't show up. You mentioned he went to the fights early on, of 11, 12 years old, got bit by the bug. How close was he? Was he ever close to actually putting on the gloves? Could he have made a good fighter? Did he want to be a good fighter? Did he try? Did he take a stab at it?
He tried. Yeah, he tried. He was a decent amateur. His biggest problem was he couldn't, no punch at all.
Yeah.
And great chin.
Yeah.
He could box. He could train.
Yeah.
He could show, guys. He chose not to go that direction, but you couldn't hurt him, but he realized early on that he wasn't going to hurt you.
Right.
And he realized early on that he was better at business than he was at being an actual boxer.
Was that a hard decision for him to make? Because we have seen guys succeed in the sport that don't have a lot of pop. There are guys that come to mind who've gotten by with very little knockouts. I think of somebody like Paulie Malignaggi or Willie Pep. Some guys didn't possess a lot of pop, but they were very slick, very skilled, and could still outbox you for 12 rounds and not necessarily maybe knock you on your ass or knock you out.
Right. I can't totally answer that. I think he's happy in the choices he made. Would he have liked to have had a few wins in there as a boxer? I think so. But he started promoting then very young also. And again, he realized that he in his way excelled at that. So
right.
Yeah, I don't think there's, I don't know. He turned 70 and he started talking to me about doing a fight, him fighting. And I'm looking at him going, I'm like, I will not be a part of a circus like this.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, look at what, George Foreman. I'm like, I don't give a shit. No, I won't be part of this. And he's like, no, I think I'm like, you're done. So, something stayed there and it does make sense. I think it's something that most of all of us go through. We start looking in the mirror and realizing, oh my God, this is true. I am getting up there.
Right.
And you start, I get those moments where I go, could I jump on stage and just do a show or a couple
you almost
of
want to prove it.
songs?
You almost feel like you got to prove it to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, hey, am I able to do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when he stepped in, though, I'm curious, when he stepped in, when fighters didn't show up, is he just a guy who just walked around in shape and close to these fight weights? How does he just jump in?
He was always in shape.
Okay, so he could jump in there just on a whim.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was always in shape back in those days. The 80s, he and success I mean, he's always had successes, but in the '80s, for a little while, he got a little late '70s. He got a little lazy and ate too much
Yeah,
and
as
hated
we
it.
all do.
And so, I mean, right up until till 3 days before his death, 3 or 4 days, he was still doing 25 sit-ups, 25 push-ups,
Wow,
at 93.
God bless.
25 sit-ups a day, 25 push-ups a day, and still walking 1 to 2 miles.
Wow.
And up here in Erie in the winter,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and I'd be upset. You can't, because I walk in the street. Like, that's not making me feel better. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
uh, but so yeah, he always he got pudgy a couple of times with excess in his life, but that didn't last.
Now, what would you say in terms of your career in rock and roll? I kind of asked you that question about your father's favorite event or favorite act or or whatever he was associated with. Same question for you. What have you been a part of? What bands have you had the pleasure of working with that have really stuck with you? I mean, that have been great experiences for you.
I was involved with the concert at Watkins Glen
Okay.
in 1973. That was amazing. 650,000 people,
Yep.
and side by side with the Allman Brothers, the Grateful Dead, and the
Yep.
band.
Yep.
You know what? Where I've lucked out. I've lucked out. I've gotten to work at some capacity or another with a bunch of my heroes.
Yes.
So I can say that I've done a couple of shows with the Allman Brothers,
Yeah.
stage managing.
Right.
Okay, not
Right.
promoting. I was tour manager and promoter with the Beach Boys for a while.
Yep.
I
Legendary act. Legendary.
Yeah,
Legendary acts. Yeah.
I worked with. I mean, Mark Volman from the Turtles just passed away a couple
Yep.
days ago.
Yes, he
Mark,
did.
Mark and I were. I don't want to call us friends. I think that would be out of line. We were acquaintances. I've worked with them. I've toured with them, and there was always, oh my God, Mark. Oh my God, Kip.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh, we didn't talk on the phone. All right, we did business together, but I got to work with the Turtles. I got to work with Gene Clark's Birds. I got to work with, most of the punk rock bands. From being, listen, I worked at CBGB's. Okay,
Legendary CBGBs.
I
Absolutely. Yeah.
I promoted tons of shows there.
Yeah.
Uh, I was a light man. I worked for CB's Fashions. I was a bouncer and a door guy, and
Yep.
and made absolutely horrible money.
Yeah.
Okay, and didn't care because yeah, God, that sounds like my dad. Because I'm not in this for the money.
Right.
I'm in it for the love of what I do. So, wow, that's a highlight. I worked at CBGB's.
Yeah.
Now, there's probably a couple hundred of us, but there's billions on this planet, and there's only a couple hundred of us that ever did what we did at CBGB's.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm proud of that. Um, I, you know, I I was married and had a daughter in 90, Jesus, I hope she doesn't say this, in 93. Her birthday's actually coming up in a couple
Yeah.
days.
It's one thing to date yourself, but to start blowing in other people.
Yeah, exactly. I was having trouble remembering what her birthday was, and it's in a couple of days. So at any rate, that started changing my life a bit. And my wife wanted me out of music, and I refused, and she left me.
Yeah.
And it took me a little while, and she disappeared with my daughter. Uh, I quit music and boxing a little bit to
Yeah.
just try to be a dad. But one thing led to another, and back to music and boxing. But I finally got custody of her, God, in junior high school. And I said, "That's it. I'm not going to tour with anybody."
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I got a job with ABC Associated Booking. They've been going. They were huge in the day, but they were sending me around the. We lived in New York City, sending me around the East Coast. I still do live in New York City. Um, Sending me around the East Coast. I said no. I said I want to join the PTA and I want to make breakfast for my daughter, and
Do the dad thing. Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
I quit. I quit the big leagues, went exclusively back to the bars. Um, Lucked out to where I kind of been able to make my own way in the bars. I mean, I work for others. Most of the time I do my own sound here and there, but I work for others, and they're like, whatever you want.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, however you want to do this. And so I'm lucky in that, and I was able to be dad. I was able, whenever they needed a parent, to go on an excursion. Me, to the
Yeah.
chagrin of my daughter,
Yeah. 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 All kids love that. Yeah.
you know. Uh, and then she graduated from high school in 2011, and then college in would that be 2015. And I just I looked around the world, and the music business has been changing so much. And for even semi-national acts, you know the tour manager was also the merch guy and the van driver and the
Oh yeah.
you
Yep.
know and I just kind of realized that I'm getting too old for that. I
Yeah.
still do sound. I still promote shows, but they're club shows. It's New York City, so I get a lot of great players,
I'm
and I
sure.
get celebrities that'll pop in and
Yeah.
jump on stage. Uh,
So what do you think of the music business now? Because it's a shell of its former self. I have musicians on, obviously, on my other podcast
mm,
all the time. A lot of them are just, it's hard, I think, to hold a band together now and get everybody rowing in the same direction. The money's not there. The record
yep,
contracts aren't there. The label support, there's very few labels even left.
yep, yep,
Streaming sites have pretty much gutted the music industry.
yep,
You've seen a lot of changes, a lot like your father did in the boxing industry.
yep.
What do you think of where music is right now as a whole?
I mean, I do the same thing in music that I do in boxing. Um, I I listen very little to any of the majors. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, my love is for the guys that are in the trenches,
Yep.
that are, when the money comes in for the gig, they're putting it into rehearsal,
Right.
rather than, um, that's my love. And you know, what I've been saying lately is I do a lot of punk rock, and I'm well
Yeah.
known for punk rock. It's
Yeah.
not the only thing I do.
And I've had a lot of guys like from that world, the punk hardcore scene on here, man. So I know what you're talking about, man. These are guys that are literally sometimes even calling themselves t-shirt salesmen. You know what I mean? They're making
Mhm.
money off of merch and they're putting it in for some hamburgers that night and gas in the van and they're headed on down the road to the next one,
Yep. But here's the thing, so 20 some odd years ago, I could do a show with a level of talent, okay,
Yeah.
at CBGB's, and do 350 people and not
Yep.
think about it.
Yep.
And 12 years ago, 15 years ago, I could do that exact same level of talent, except that I'm doing a 125 seat club.
Right.
Now, if I do 75 people for that same level of talent,
Right.
I'm excited.
That's a
You
big
know,
night. Yeah.
I live on very little, and I have love for, yeah, for a number of years now, the guys that are making it, and especially like with my daughter and trying to be a parent, the guys that are making it don't need me.
Right.
It's the guys that are still fighting and struggling, um, on the way up or on the way down.
Right.
All right. And I have found a niche in that world. Um, basically almost exclusively original music. Um, uh, there was a time when the kind of music I loved was in the trenches, and now it's back in the trenches.
Yep.
And out of it, something may come, because that's how it always works.
Right.
The,
Yep.
out of the decay comes something beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll live long enough, or I might see the beginnings of things turning around again. But there's great talent out there.
There
And what
is.
I tell everybody is like, all right, if you're disgusted, you don't want to pay $400 for a ticket. You don't have to. Find your local club, find your regional club with the style of music that you like, and pay that $5, $10,
Yep.
maybe $20
Right.
ticket price, and you're going to find some great music.
Yeah, I prefer those type of venues. I prefer those little hole-in-the-wall dive bar type of shows. I really do. First of all, man, you're seeing bands in a much more intimate setting, and I think they bring it a little more in a setting like that. You know what I mean? Rather than just looking out to a sea of 50,000 people and just playing to those first couple of rows. And in those little clubs, they're right there. They're in your face. There's something much more primitive, something much more rock and roll about it.
Exactly. And listen, again, I luck out where I live that, legitimate rock stars will walk in and jump on stage, or, they'll say, hey, Kip, can you throw my band on and unannounced because we want to work on a couple of new things, or I got a side project.
Yeah.
Would you put it on? I love that. And I'll tell you something else I love. I tell everybody, the greatest guitar player you've ever heard and the greatest song you've ever heard, you've never heard.
Right.
Because that guitar is collecting dust in a closet, and that song, and I just use it, is on a cassette tape in a shoebox on the shelf.
Yeah.
And life takes over. And then all of a sudden, some of these players find themselves in there, and especially like rockers, because we had a tendency to have children a little bit later in life because we had these delusions of grandeur, right?
Right.
So suddenly, you're 60 years old and your child is out of the house, and you and the wife look at each other and realize that you've spent the last 20, whatever years, everything was about the child.
Right.
And,
sure.
And I see a lot of these cats grabbing their guitars, dusting them off, rehearsing. They can't jump around like they used to. And they don't have any illusions or delusions.
Right.
They want to get on stage and make great music. And I will tell you, it's nonstop that these cats are out there just playing for the heart, their soul, and those that are interested in listening. That's greatness to me, man.
Yeah. And I love that you're interested or you're involved in the punk rock aspect too, because that is a very DIY community. You know what I mean? Nose to the grindstone, hustling. I've had a lot of guys like from that punk hardcore scene where it started in New York in the Lower East Side.
Yep.
It was a much grittier time. A lot of the guys I've had on have played at CBGBs. Do you think that same ethos though? Because now it's so easy to make music. Not that anybody will actually listen, but you can put it up on streaming sites. You can get it out there much easier than when you used to have to go to a recording studio and go to a label and all that stuff. Do you think the ethos of rock and roll and having to work hard, is it's a bygone era? It's dead and gone. I mean, is it?
No.
Is it no?
No. I think for the masses, it's dead and gone. And I think, you're right. It's
but the true punk rock mentality and attitude still survives.
It's still there.
Okay.
It's still there. And again, I can't draw 350 people in New York City, which blows my mind because there's, 8.5 million. I can't draw a couple hundred.
Those 75 that show up, though, are there for the right reason, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these kids, and you just reminded me, when we're done, I got to book a band for a show. I just thought a band I got to book.
Yeah.
No, I think it's there. And there's guys, I've got kids, at my age anymore, they're in their 30s. But I got kids that are going, I'm not abandoning this. And I do get 20 somethings that come up and go, oh man, this is great. Yes, I want to be part of this. Or they're bringing their, you're the man. Can I play you my demo? No, there's still people. And when you get to middle America, listen, the punk rock scene might be 25 people, but boy, you walk into that little shithole club
Yeah.
and there's 25 people in there just going nuts,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Uh, uh, so it's not over. I will say that I am seeing a resurgence in musicians saving their money and going back to studios
Okay.
because things can be done in studios with other ears that you're you got to be a special individual to do in your bedroom,
Right.
you know,
Right.
or you're in your den. You got my, you know, you, it's different being in a legit studio. And God, I've heard great and bad demos in both, you know.
Right. Right. Right.
But I am seeing guys with studios and new studios starting to open, and they're going, yeah, we're making money.
And now that there are no labels, though, because I feel like the labels created and certainly invested a lot into giving us some of these iconic stars.
Absolutely.
Where do we find them? And someone just made this point on my podcast last night. Where do we find them? You know what I mean? Because I think they were the ones that gave birth to the Princes and the Madonnas and the, these larger than life rock stars. Will we see them again? Where do they come from?
I mean, that's a good question.
It just seems hard. It seems hard because obviously, there were labels that were funneling money, into making these like larger than life stars. Now, if you're some kid sitting home and you want to be the next John Lennon or the next Prince or whatever, man, you know what I mean? How do you become it? Yes, you can put your music up on the streaming platform, but how do you become that larger than life persona?
You know what? I'm happy when that 50-seat room turns into 100 with the odd end band. No, you're absolutely right. Here, listen, most of us, and I'm sure you included, when the internet started, we were, this is going to be great.
Right.
The cream will rise to the top.
Yep.
It didn't work like that. Everybody and their mother can throw, any piece of crap up there that they want.
Yep.
And again, as I was saying, here's, I've gotten, I've listened to demos or, whether it's on Spotify or on a thumb drive or still on a CD, where I've gone, oh God, that's awful. Because they did it in their, they didn't know what they were doing. They did it in their bedroom and they're putting it out there. And then suddenly I see the band live and go, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah.
And vice versa, So, I mean, one of the big things I do is give you something to listen to and where are you playing. And now, if I can't go see you playing, I can't do the proper research. There's not enough YouTube videos, et cetera, et cetera. I do punk rock shows basically. I'm doing 4, 5, 6, 8 bands in a night.
Right.
You get 2 slots, the opener and the closer.
Right.
And that's where I put bands that I don't know enough about. I put them into one of those slots and show me something.
Right. Make a name for yourself. Right.
Bring some bodies at these stupid hours, late night or too early.
Right.
And you bring me some bodies and show me you got the chops. And I will tell you that, as we know, some of them get knocked out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of them win a few, and some of them, go on to be champions because they still can do it out there. There's money to be made. There's a lot of bands doing, smaller clubs that are building themselves up to 500 seat in that DIY world.
Right.
Now those 500 seat clubs are legitimate clubs, but there's Soraya out of Philadelphia. There's Secret Fox out of New York City. There's, I can't even think. There's, out of the Midwest. What are those girls? man, the elderly kicking in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There are bands that are out there touring, making money. They're making a living. They're not getting rich. They're not going to
Right,
be. They're not going to be buying mansions and throwing TVs out of out of hotel room windows.
right.
But
Maybe that's the secret, though.
they can
Maybe
pay
don't
their
set the,
bills.
maybe don't set the bar too high. Maybe that's the secret nowadays. With music, you can't expect the superstardom that people once were able to attain.
Yeah, make a living. If
It
you
might come, it
really
might
love
not.
music, make a living. If you
Yeah.
have delusions of grandeur, then good luck.
The business is going to swallow you up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now to tie it all back in before I let you out of here, I want to get back, of course, since I'm having you on the boxing podcast. I want to tie it all back in. When your father gets inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, because he is an old school guy. Some people, you hear a lot of rock bands. Either they like getting in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or they get snubbed and they don't give a shit and they thumb their nose at it. What kind of honor was that, and how did your father take that honor, man? Is he one of those kind of guys where it's nice if it happens, or was he very proud of it?
No, he was, you know, he, he started he started out because it took a while, and there's political crap involved.
Sure. Yeah.
He should have been in a couple of the Hall of Fames much, much sooner. All right.
Agreed.
Absolute should have.
Yeah.
It didn't happen, and he let it roll off publicly, even to me.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you something. It has to take its toll a little bit.
Sure.
And it has to feel damn good to get the recognition. And it did. I'm so happy that he's gotten into these Hall of Fames that he's in.
Yeah.
And he's gotten the respect that he deserves. He's always had a level of it. But to get that honor, that plaque, that ring, he's an old school guy, and I think it made him very proud. It made me proud.
Right, because you know what I'm talking about. There are guys who are just like, I don't care if we ever win a Grammy. I don't care if we ever go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't care about accolades. I don't care about this and that. Some people really don't. Some people just say, hey, I've done what I've done, and if it's recognized, it's recognized. If it's not, it's not.
And the vast majority of those, if all of a sudden something went right and they're getting some kind, they'd be right there. Yes, listen, the ones that say no, forget it.
Right.
I'm not accepting that. They don't have to. They're,
right.
They're so well known. Listen, once you're suddenly the one getting it, it changes most people's
good. Sure.
opinions.
It definitely feels good. Now, before I let you out of here, I'm curious, because you've got all these great stories, both in the boxing and the rock world, and certainly can throw some of your father's life and story in there too. I know it seems like nowadays everybody's doing this, and I don't know if this is even an avenue you're interested in. Is there a book in KIPP ELBAUM?
Possibly. There's been talk. There's somebody that started writing. It stopped basically because of COVID.
Yeah.
She wants to pick it up. I've had a lot of health issues the last few years.
Yeah.
Some very, very serious. It looks like I've overcome them. We still don't know, because I actually spent this summer blowing off all the doctors to be by my father's side.
Understandable.
So right now, there is a gentleman named Joe Body, an author, that's doing a book on my father.
Okay.
I am now taking my father's place as far as editing and going through this. There is interest already from a couple of major film companies.
Okay.
To do a legitimate film, not a doc, but a legitimate movie.
Right.
Which my dad's colorful past is worthy of this.
I would say so. Yeah.
So right now I'm really focusing on that. I'm working with Joe just to throw my 2 cents in on the book and clean up what might need to be. And then Joe and I think together are going to write at least the advanced draft of a screenplay. and I'm in the process of looking for a quality attorney, entertainment attorney
Yep.
for film. I think at that stage of the game, first and foremost is my dad.
Yeah.
I want his legacy to be out there and in book and, if possible, in movie form that will then last for a lifetime and then some, right? Uh, and then we'll see. I got a lot of stories. We'll see where that goes. You know,
And then more importantly, now I have a few people in mind and have certainly seen him compared looks wise to some people. But now the big question is, who plays Don Elbaum in the movie?
That's a real good question, because, like I say, I haven't had a TV in a while, so
Yeah.
I'm not quite up. I mean, on who's who these days. I mean,
Obviously, somebody
that
has to play him in different stages of his life. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
you would have to it would have to be multiple actors, though. I have seen a couple times online his looks compared to Harvey Keitel.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 Which
Yep.
I don't know at this point in his life if Harvey is even still actively doing movies.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, obviously he would have to play, the oldest end of life version of your father because he's up there in age himself.
Hey, look, the other, who's going to play me?
Right. Is there anybody good looking enough in Hollywood? I guess
That's right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Pretty head like this, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, we'll have to see if Sean Connery or somebody is available.
Yeah, I'm not that old yet.
Well, listen, there is a lot of great stories there, though, man. And I only ask it just because it seems like a medium nowadays where I'm seeing people put out books who you often sit back and think, I would have never saw this coming. Have they lived a life, rich enough to have a book?
Yep.
But I guess nowadays, I mean, again, the same thing with the music. I guess anybody can really do it and get it published. How many people how much interest is garnered in it, I guess, is a different story. But
I mean, I think, we got to look, let me be honest. I think the book on my dad could make a legitimate splash.
No question.
Especially if it becomes a movie.
Yeah.
And then the idea maybe of, riding on the coattails. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not against it. Listen, my dad and I were always there for each other. We always backed each other up.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't mind. He would say, he would be the one, if he was here, going, start getting that book ready.
Well, who's not going to want to, if someone's selling me a ticket, by all means, please take my money. If you're telling me I'm going to go see a movie based on a boxing promoter who in different stages of his career posed as a doctor, jumped in and fought at the last minute, was almost blown up by an Irish mobster. I mean, all the elements of a Hollywood movie are that rubbing elbows with all these great boxing people throughout the course of history. The dirty side, the political side, the mob side of it. I mean, it's got all the makings of keeping people, or bringing people to the theater.
It really does.
Yeah.
So that right now, that's my focus. I got to get back to New York, and get back to work. I haven't worked in a while because I've been taking care of my dad, and now sadly my mother is not doing well.
I saw on Facebook. Yeah, I hope everything turns out good. Yeah.
It's she's 97. It's
oftentimes I do see, from being a nurse, that's my day job, and I do work in geriatrics in a nursing home. Though oftentimes you do see when someone like loses their significant other. I don't know if your parents were still together, but they were not. But they were at one point in time, though, in their lives. And sometimes when that significant other goes, you start to see the other person, start to deteriorate.
Well, that's, there's my dad was a public figure, so there's people,
right?
There's people in his life right up to the end. My mother was not,
right?
And she's 97 years old, she'll be 98 in a couple of months.
Yeah.
There's nobody now. The last link to her youth was my dad.
Right.
There's no longer a link. There is, kids, grandkids, but it's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I do think that there is an element of her looking around going, there's nothing left. And her quality of life is not great.
Right.
So I have my feelings, and I hope that she can find peace very soon.
Yeah, I hope so too. Listen, Kip, it was great working with you. Me and my son had a blast, man, commentating with you. I'm glad we have each other's contact information. I'm happy and proud to say that I know you, man. I'm glad we got a chance to do this and stay in touch. We will definitely do it again when the movie, when things get rolling, book, movie, anything to promote, man. You're always welcome, man. I always have a platform here.
You know how to find me. I know how to find you.
Absolutely. And
Right.
and I think when the ending credits for the movie come, this ought to be the moment that closes out the movie. Now it's a matter of who do I find to play me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll make that happen.
We'll make it happen. Listen, I appreciate it, buddy. Really.
Thank you.
Again, my condolences on the loss of your father. I'll keep your mother in my prayers, man, and you in my prayers as well, man. And never need anything, reach out, please.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Kip.
All
Good
right.
talking to you, my friend.
All
All right, later, buddy. And there he goes, folks. The legendary KIPP ELBAUM. What a life lived, folks. I mean, we should all go out there and grab life by the horns, by the cojones, for my Spanish-speaking audience. I like to do you guys a solid. Go out there and grab life by the horns like the ELBAUM clan has done, man. KIPP has done it in the boxing world and the rock and roll world. Two worlds that are extremely fast-paced, crazy, hectic, have their dirty side. And of course, his legendary father, who unfortunately just passed away July 27th of this year, the great Don ELBAUM, boxing promoter, matchmaker, sometime doctor, sometime fighter himself. I mean, you just heard the conversation, the stories, the cars blowing up, the workings with the Don Kings of the world, the hucksters out there, the P.T. Barnum carnival type atmosphere and circus that the boxing world can be sometimes. It really does have the makings of a great book, great movie, a crazy, crazy life. But yet it seems like very satisfying, though, and very enriching. And it sounds like it has certainly been spawned some amazing stories. The ELBAUMs really are a huge asset and credit to the sport of boxing, and KIPP also to the world of rock and roll. So I am glad. A little backstory here quickly. What I was referring to in the beginning, my son and co-host Frank Benji's. We had the privilege of going down August 2nd, as many of you know that tune into this. Our boy, Anthony Pretty Boy Bizarro, fantastic lightweight out of Erie, Pennsylvania, fought August 2nd. His uncle, Ernie Bizarro, who was the promoter of the event, invited us down, loves what we do on the podcast, had us down to do the commentating, which was our first foray into that world for both the boxing and the MMA portion of their pay-per-view event. And again, shout out to Ernie, shout out to the Bizarro clan in Erie, Pennsylvania. They have a rich history, as KIPP alluded to, in Erie, Pennsylvania, and in boxing in general. So we went down there. We had the pleasure of meeting KIPP, who at that point was in the audience to watch the fights. It had only been less than a week, I think, or somewhere around a week that his father had passed away. He was in town to watch the fights, came over, joined us at the broadcast booth or table, put the headset on, commentated a big part of the boxing program with us, and really was a pleasure to get to meet him. We exchanged contact information, and we specifically said we would make this happen, and we would get all the great stories and just have an amazing conversation, which we did. So I thank him for that. So that is how we linked up, man, and very happy now to know him in life and to call him a friend. And listen, hope you guys enjoyed that, man. That's what we do here. You know it, and that's why you love it. And that's why you love us. The most amazing and real boxing conversations anywhere on planet Earth. It's what we do here, bringing back the art of conversation. It's been dead for a while. Everyone's got their faces in their devices, but we still like to move all around the board here on Off the Couch Boxing and chop it up about this, that, the other thing, always with a focus on boxing. But listen, we're all over the board with it. You guys know that. Never know what moves we're going to make or what we're going to end up bringing up. But that was a great conversation. So again, I appreciate the great KIPP ELBAUM, truly a legend in the boxing and rock and roll world. So again, now I'll go into promotion mode. Let me get out the old pimp hand. It's feeling strong today. You got a podcast. You got to make sure you're getting it out there and in the people's faces. Promote, promote, promote. Don and Kip would agree. It's all about promoting in life, folks. So here we go. Make sure to tap into Off the Couch Boxing on Facebook. The Facebook page is Off the Couch Boxing and Pod Scum. Both of my podcasts, one Facebook page. I will not be burdened with two. So what you see is what you get. Updates on both podcasts. So you'll find out when new episodes are dropping, who will be on those episodes, and any big boxing news. If it's popping off in the fight game, I like to keep my boxing brethren in the loop, keep you all informed, whether it's big fight announcements, breakdowns, analysis, results, predictions, viral videos. If it comes on my radar and it's big and it's happening in the boxing world, I'm putting it on there, man. So get tapped in with us there. And of course, if you're watching right now, like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell. This is where you really need to be. Tap into us right here. We are north of 280 episodes of Off the Couch Boxing. I always say it. It's a treasure trove of amazing conversations. Go back and check it out. There's literally something for everybody. And when you look at all the work that we've done here, you will realize why we are the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champion of boxing podcast. And the good news is you at home can be a champion too. All you got to do is continue to stay tapped in with Off the Couch Boxing and continue to roll with the champs. Peace.